Good morning, everybody. I'm Amy Reich, Executive Director of First Five. Welcome. Thank you for coming. I want to introduce our new chair, Kristen Cedervaken, who is going to do a better welcome and introduce our speaker.
Thank you, Amy. I just want to thank you all for coming. It's so wonderful to have so many dedicated people for our young children and families. As Amy said, I'm Kristen Cedervaken. I work for Marin County Department of Public Health. I'm currently working on public health accreditation, which probably doesn't mean much to you guys, but it's really cool. So I want to take an opportunity to recognize all of our commissioners. If you are here and you're on the First Five Commission, can you please stand up? We've got Gabrielle Philippe Auguste from Homeward Bound, David Bonifilio from Canine Companions, and he was a founding commissioner. Amy Eisenman from Bay Area Discovery Museum, Carrie Berman from Marin County Department of Health and Human Services, Lisa Levitt, who's a pediatrician with Marin Community Clinics, Supervisor Dennis Rodoni, and Juan Rodriguez, who's a principal at Venetia Valley Elementary School. Sorry, I pulled from an old list. Lucia Martel, who is our newest member and is the Director of Immigration and Social Services at Canal Alliance. So really all wonderful people. Sorry, Lucia. So I'm just so excited to be able to be on this commission and work with these talented people and all of you to help make the lives of our young children better. I have 2 young children myself, 3 and 6, so I understand the struggles that parents can face. And you know, I'm excited to just move these issues forward: children's health, school readiness, and just providing more community support for families. With that, I just want to introduce our keynote speaker, who is Patricia Lozano, who is the Executive Director of Early Edge California. She'll be telling us a little bit more about her organization and the resources that Early Edge can provide, and maybe a little discussion about how we can partner going forward. So please welcome Patricia.
Buenos dias. Good morning, everyone. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for inviting me. So today I wanted to, basically talk a little bit about Early Edge, but make this useful for everyone here. So as I, move forward with my presentation, I hope you guys take time to write questions, and feel free to reach out after, because, we really want to be a resource, and we really want to help, people working in the field to see us as a resource and a connection to Sacramento. So, Early Edge is an advocacy organization, and one of our key or main goals is to advocate for high-quality programs for kids 0 to 8. Within that, we have 3 main areas of work. One is we care about teachers, where we want to be the voice of teachers, and we want to be sure that their voice is heard in Sacramento. The second one is dual language learners. As Californians, we know that the majority of kids 0 to 5 don't speak English at home. So we want to be sure that families and adults that work with dual language learners have the resources to, and training to work with them. So that's our second big priority. And the third one is quality. The quality is like an umbrella where we say, we understand that there's a huge need for programs and for childcare, but let's talk about how can we include quality in our conversations. There is not one definition about quality because we know there's a mixed delivery system, but we know that the people taking care of our kids need supports. And for me, for Early Edge, those are the conversations we need to have to be sure that those environments are the best ones for our kids. So now I'm going to move on to Governor Newsom's early childhood budget proposal. So as you know, this was a historic time, or is such a historic time for early learning. And here's I don't know how much you can see a summary of the current proposal that we know we should know more about in mid-May, the May revision. It's when we were going to know the final, budget. But the one that came out in January included a lot, and as you can see, of different things for early learning, which is exciting. And it's not only early learning, but also health. Health screenings, CalWorks. He also included funding for childcare in higher ed institutions, pre-K. So I'll go a little bit more in detail. So the budget included $245 million one-time funding for childcare and preschool facilities serving children 0 to 5. He also included $750 million to build new existing kindergarten facilities to provide full-day kindergarten. The budget also includes $125 million to fund 10,000 additional full-day state preschool. I know this is a lot of information, but all this is available in our website, and we can also share the details with you after. The budget also includes $245 million for workforce, which was great. It's a one-time investment, but it is signaling that the governor understands how key and how important it is to support our workforce. And he also included, as I mentioned, early childhood screenings and home visiting. Sorry, I went back. So now I'm going to move to the legislation. As you may know, there is a lot of bills related to early learning and early childhood. Early Edge is sponsoring 2 bills. The first one is AB 123, and the main goal of this bill is to increase access to preschool. So it's what we call targeted universalism. So basically, it's the first step to get to universal preschool. So we want to be sure that all kids that are low income and in low income communities have access to high quality preschool. This would apply to 4-year-olds, and then also kids, 3-year-olds living in poverty. So that's the goal. In addition to that, we're also advocating for higher compensations for state preschool teachers, and also recognize those that have a BA degree to get higher compensation and incentivize getting a bachelor's degree for the current workforce. We're also sponsoring AB 1012, the bilingual, what we call the bilingual EC bill, and this is in partnership with some organizations in the K-12 world. It's with Californians Together, CABE, and the goal is to see bilingualism as a continuum. So what we want to do is ask that dual language programs begin in preschool. So basically, the expansion of current dual language programs, not only, so they don't just start in kindergarten, but before. So that's one of the goals. And we also want to advocate for additional funds for training, because as you know, a lot of classrooms have multilingual environments, and our teachers don't know how to work with these families. And there's so many things that they can do in the classroom, even if you're not bilingual, right? There's many strategies. And so our goal is to support all the adults in the classroom to know what to do. And obviously, our vision is to have that every child in California will be bilingual, but starting where it's like, let's provide those resources so our teachers know how to work with them, and then move towards being a bilingual for all state. We're supporting other bills, and I can share the list. It's posted on our website, but there is another bill about, it's AB 167, and it is about increasing high-quality programs for infant and toddlers. And as you may know, there is a high need to add and increase access and quality for infant and toddlers. So we're not sponsoring, but supporting that bill. And then I already talked about AB 123. This is AB 1012. This is all the things that are happening related to bilingualism in California. So as you may know, we used to be an English-only state, which was, I mean, makes no sense given that the majority of our kids are dual language learners. So the good news is that Proposition 58 passed in 2016, so that's not, now schools can provide bilingual programs, which is great and has helped us to advocate for more funding and additional programs. Also, the state released the California English Learner Roadmap Policy, and these are guidelines for schools on how to work with English learners. So what Early Edge is doing is translating or making it accessible and easy to understand for early learning professionals. So we have many documents and one-pagers on what does it mean and what are the key things you need to know if you're interested in having a dual language program. The state also has a seal of biliteracy, and this applies more to K-12, but the goal is to have more kids to recognize high school graduates that are bilingual. And the goal of the state superintendent is to increase that number. So we're partnering with K-12 and looking at how do we include early learning in this process, because the sooner you start, the easier it is to learn a second language. If you start in kindergarten, you will learn a second language, but you miss this window of opportunity to expose kids to a second language. So it would be so much faster if they start the minute they enter, or the minute they go to a state-funded program. They start to be exposed to different languages. So I wanted to share a little bit more about our priorities. And we did this video, that it's a very short video about our work with providers in the field. So we sometimes, spend a lot of time in Sacramento thinking about policy, but we forget to go back and talk to the people that are doing the work in the ground. So I started as a preschool teacher. I am from Colombia, and I still remember the first day, my first day in the classroom. I was like, I have all the preparation, I got my degree, I know everything. And like after 5 minutes, I was like, oh my God, I'm gonna be fired. I had a room of 2-year-olds, and I had all these activities, and then exactly after 5 minutes, they were all running around crazy. And they obviously knew that I had no idea what to do. So I always think, these people that work with kids are not recognized. They're not valued as someone that, it is hard work. They're like, how hard it is? It is difficult. You really need this. And human beings, they come with all this history and backgrounds and, things happening at home. And you're the person, you are like the second mom. You're the person that they spend time with you sometimes more than with the parents. And they need the support. And it's just like, oh no, you get the degree and there you go. They need coaching, they need, communities of learning. And I think that we need to share that more, and then we need legislators to understand that, these kids are going to be the future, and we're not, taking care of the families or the adults that are, taking care of them. So what we we started doing where we created these advisory groups with teachers across the state. And we gathered and said, here are our ideas. We think being bilingual is great. We think that, getting a BA could help you, get better pay, get all this. What do you think? So we've had a group in LA, a group here in Oakland. We had a group in Fresno. So I wanted to share a video of what was discussed during those meetings.
Is when the brain grows rapidly. So having access to quality childhood education programs in California is essential.
Quality care is actually teaching the child cognitive skills, but social skills, learning about the world, but it should be intentional.
Not having the funding for preschool is our biggest challenge. Quality early learning would be where children actually have access to a preschool program with proper materials, proper curriculum.
Sometimes I have to purchase my own materials. As it is, we as preschool teachers get very low salaries.
The preparation that I received didn't really prepare me for working with dual language learners and the importance of, supporting them in their home language and helping them grow from there.
California can improve early learning by paying teachers worthy wages, ensuring that teachers have access to workshops, and ensuring that the families have access to programs that are of high quality.
What our California leaders need to really take a look at is early learning a priority for them. It's a priority for a lot of the parents, it's a priority for the teachers who teach them, it's a priority for the schools. So now we need them to see the value of early learning. And if we don't invest in that, then what are we saying? What are we saying to our kids?
All right. That was to give you a little bit. So we're still doing those groups, and it would be great to have participants from this area. And we're looking to hear more and more voices. We're also thinking about, how to include more infant and toddler care providers, license exempt, everyone that is touching the life of kids. So that's, and then in addition to this, to this initiative, we're obviously a voice for increasing pay and developing, a pathway for the workforce to succeed. As I mentioned before, we are also, it's not just a one-time thing. It's the coaching, the support that should be there, the whole year. So last, December, we had a chance to go to the East Coast to visit some programs, some high-quality programs in Boston, New Jersey, and New York City. And the common elements between these programs were that they all had, a research-based curriculum. They all compensated their teachers. They all provided coaching. So it was interesting that they all invested, obviously in the requirements, a BA, a credential. Teachers, had to have those qualifications. But after that, they all invested an immense amount of time in coaching and really being up to date on what the teachers need and what is happening with the kids in the classroom and the families. So what we took back was that, it's not just one thing we need to think about when we talk about quality. It's there's many elements, and they all have to be present in these programs. And then it's also thinking, how do we talk about full day, but that's not a real full day for working families. So how do we connect all the different programs so, families have care all day, all the work, the real work day. So in terms of DLLs, and I don't know if all of you are familiar, but we have two different terms in California. We have dual language learners, who are kids 0 to 5, who speak other language than English at home. And then you have English learners, and this term is used in K to 12. So that's, if you hear those two different terms, at the end is, both kids, the majority of these kids speak other language than English at home. But in early learning, we say dual language learners. So for us, our priorities, and I talk a little bit about it, is how do we support our teachers and our professionals to get the resources they need? How do we expand to have more programs available for parents? And also, how do we tell parents about these programs? Because what's happening is that, bilingualism now, a lot of people understand the benefits. So higher income parents are really interested in getting into these programs, leaving, and leaving out the real, other parents that really need and benefit from these programs to be able to access them. So we need to really educate and share, because there's still fears about my kid needs to learn English to be successful, and how do we really support the families and the programs to say it's better if you support home language to learn English. That's what research shows. So kids who get support for the home language and also English at the end will do better in school. So that, we're working on our communications, and we are going to release a video about the benefits of bilingualism and how, we really have to endorse and work with families and say, at home, you should speak your home language. And if you don't want to read a book or you don't feel comfortable, just tell stories. Just, the more you speak your home language, the better chances that you can learn the second language or English. And then also working with higher ed to be sure that DLLs is part of the curriculum, because given our population and the kids we serve, teachers right now, it's not part of the curriculum in many of the programs in higher ed. So we are working with the CTC to really to be sure the DLL content is everywhere. So teachers have that preparation. And then, the quality programs piece, it is more, everywhere I go, I try to say, let's have a conversation about quality. Sometimes it's difficult because we really want to provide the services, but let's find a way to really and focus on finding the right supports for the adults that are working with kids. So I think that we need a lot more voices for quality, and also how do we connect both access and quality? Because we really want to do both together, and so have a story for legislators and the administration where they say you can't just have either or; they have to be together, and find a way to do it at every level, right? Every level that, or every type of program. And then now here, this piece is for you to really think about, to see Early Edge as a resource, and how, here are ways you can help. So make your voice heard. One of the current senior policy analyst for the administration, Janina Perez, she used to work with us at Early Edge. So she's always saying, we never hear from people that are doing the work, right? We came up with this budget historically, that is the first time we have such a huge investment in early childhood, and we didn't hear a lot. So, it is important for us to call your representative, to send letters. They do read them, and they do, it is little drops, right? It's not like we're going to change the world, but sometimes we think, it's not worth it. But I think that building these coalitions and really acknowledging when saying yes, we're so excited, but, and the feedback is always welcomed. So don't forget that you have a voice, and it's really important for you to connect. And then, for us, if raising the importance of bilingualism and quality. So we are always looking for people that want to support these two issues. And I think that's it. Oh, is that microphone?
That was me. Sorry. Thank you very much, but don't go away.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Patricia. There are a lot of people working on issues around early childhood ed and early childhood development all around the state, and there are lots of issues that we need to be active on, and now we actually have some legislation that we can interact with and be part of shaping. So it's really important that we pay attention to that. So thank you. But I want to open this up for questions, and Michelle and I will be roaming around. And Michelle, you can get that one.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Yes. I'll try to answer all of your questions.
Hi. My question has to do with sort of the last piece you were discussing about educating parents. That's a key piece for me in my work, and I'd like to know when your presentation is going to be available so that we can use that.
Yeah, right after this meeting. Yeah, and then we're looking for to have some advisory groups with parents. So we can talk after to add that piece and do something similar to what we're doing with teachers. So.
For everyone that officially registered, I have your email, so we'll send out a note about the link to the presentation, and you can just let us know. Other questions and comments?
Yeah.
Coming.
Thank you.
Yes, good morning. I have a question. Dual language learners in California, how many languages are you planning on supporting? Because that would be really difficult.
That's an excellent question. We have so many languages. I think obviously Spanish is the most common one, but depending on where you live, you have multilingual classrooms. So what we are trying to push, and then we need also more research on what works, but what we know is that being exposed to a second language, no matter if you have, for example, if you speak Spanish, but you're exposed to, I'm going to just say French, for example, it is better, it is good for your brain, right? So we can do multilingual, but there's some strategies, for example, that you can use. So we have an interview for parents. So when they get to the first day of school, the teacher will know what's their home language. And then she can have parent engagement activities where you have the parent as an expert if they have the time. So for example, there is this program in Fresno that they do that. So they have, events where parents come and read in their own home language if they feel comfortable, or they come and do a party with their food, and they're always encouraging them. And then you see these classrooms, and the walls have pictures in different languages. And then if you have the resource, then you will have everything in languages that you have access to. So you have signs, and so it is possible. I mean, you can't have 5 languages and be fluent in them, but you have strategies to at least recognize and also encourage parents to keep the language, right? And to really have some strategies at home and make them, and then you will, parents really acknowledge and appreciate that, and they really engage and bring that to the schools and the pre-K settings.
Okay, great.
Hi. Just to bring it local, I was wondering if you're familiar with the partnership between the Marin Community Foundation and San Rafael City Schools called the P3, Pre-K to 3 Initiative. been going on for 8 years to develop pre-K curriculum.
Oh, wow.
Are you familiar?
I'm not, and I would love to learn about it, yes.
Okay. Do you have and follow-up on that, do you have an opinion on dual immersion and single immersion learning? We have both in our district, and we have a dual immersion task force. We're going to roll out a lot more of that, but we have one site that's single immersion. The difference is a bilingual classroom or a Spanish-only classroom to learn the basics. Do you have any opinion on that? Thank you.
As I said, we don't have enough research to say one is better than the other one. What we know is supporting home language, either if it's 90% Spanish, 10% English, and then or 50-50. So the big debate is how much, right? But sadly, we don't have enough evidence to say which one's better. But we know that kids who are in the 90-10 or the 50-50 do better than kids who are just English only and have no support for the home language. So hopefully we'll get more evidence, and I think it is just many variables, influence. So if you have, programs that have a lot of materials and have bilingual native speakers and have parent engagement, those elements influence the quality, right? So I think when you are deciding which model to use, you should see at your resource, what resources you have, because definitely having a native speaker will make a huge difference, right, in the quality. So, and now another thing that I didn't mention was that last year we advocated for additional funds for training, and the state allocated $5 million for professional development for early learning. And the California Department of Ed, is funding 3 programs right now, one in Fresno, another one called SEAL, it's SEAL, that it is a really good program to look at, and Preschool GLAD. So the idea is to increase the capacity of these programs and hopefully have them available across the state. So if you need more information, I'm happy to connect. Sorry.
Hi, I'm Betty Rappaport. I'm a 42-year-old, I wish I was 42. I've been in the field 42 years, preschool and kindergarten teacher.
Nice.
I am what we call a coach now. I teach community college. I've seen a lot of changes in our field. I would definitely say we need quality improvement in both arenas of elementary school and preschool. And because I've walked both sides, I see real differences in focuses. So I have a couple questions for you. The first is why TK and not quality preschool? That's the first question. Why do we need TK when we had state guidelines, learning guidelines, we have the DRDP, so we do have a comprehensive system. So, I remember when TK was rolled out and kindergarten teachers were scratching their heads and freaking out. And personally, I wondered why a 5-year-old in preschool would be different as a 5-year-old in elementary school or under TK guidelines.
I'll try to answer that question about the TK. I think the vision for TK was to increase access and having it as part of the public system. I think that the idea was that more kids would have access to it. I don't think it's better, than pre-K, or I think what, and that's my opinion, is that both CSPP and TK have elements that combine will make a great program. So I think that, the problem with TK is having, the ratios, having, they need more emphasis in child development, but the research that has been done with TK shows that kids are learning. And I think one of the elements is that teachers are supported and are credentialed. And I think that having that piece and taking those elements and also integrating what works with CSPP, which is a high, it is child development. emphasis in child development is greater, the ratios are better. And, when you go into a classroom, it looks like a pre-K classroom, right? So I think that given where we are, what we are trying to do is how to blend both programs, because once you have a program going, you can't just eliminate it, because a lot of kids are benefiting from TK right now, and so I think what we are trying to see is how do we help the system to blend them and take what's working from both, if that's. Yeah.
But my understanding of you didn't have the bill up there, the bill that would take all the 4-year-olds into TK programs.
Right, yeah.
So, pardon me? Low-income 4-year-olds. So my concern really is about focus. And my concern is that children will be denied the time they need to explore, to initiate their own ideas with ideally really qualified supportive teachers.
Right.
Because I think that's the piece where they see themselves as competent learners, that their ideas are valued. And that's a great foundation to bring in literacy and math.
Right.
So we do, there are a lot of improvements going on in preschool, if you want to call it that. And we are getting there. And so I think it's great that you have the focus groups and are advocating for higher pay, which has, been a problem in this field ever since I've been in it, and why really great teachers leave. So to get to data, I want to ask you, and my concerns translate into this data. I'm curious, I haven't seen any longitudinal data about TK. So while I understand the kids may be showing better literacy skills when they enter kindergarten, I'm wondering, does it endure?
Right. And I think that's the next step, yeah.
So
the problem is that we don't have data about CSPP2, like about state preschool. So I think that in an ideal world, we'll have, we could just say what works best from both programs and how can we, improve them. Because I agree, TKID could have more emphasis and training and supports for teachers on how to work with 4-year-olds.
Well, that is one of my questions. Do you know what percentage of TK teachers have really gotten the required units in early childhood education?
I don't have that data, but I could look into it.
I think it would be really important and really has a huge impact on this decision of Newsom's about where the emphasis is going to be. Because my understanding, and it's totally anecdotal, is that some of the elementary teachers didn't want to go to community college to take the units.
Right.
Which to me is an affront as a professional in this field. When I was trained as a credentialed teacher, I had less than half a class in child development. And those are, it's subtle what happens to children social emotionally. And I don't want to deny that they are literate either, but I don't think it's an either or. So, okay, one more question. Do you know what the rate of referrals to the principals for disciplined behavior is from TK programs? And especially my concern is for boys and boys of color.
I don't have that data, no. But I know there's been efforts to reduce expulsion in pre-K, but not in TK. But it's a great question. Yeah.
Other questions?
Hi, thank you for your work. Around the issue of fair pay for teachers, I'm just thinking about the recent Oakland teachers strike, and I'm wondering what you think about that as a strategy, and if you do any interface with labor unions.
We do. So I think we've been, since I started at Early Edge, we've been talking to the unions to be sure that, we're aligned on what we want to do and how, it's not only increasing requirements, but also compensation. We have not, talked about a specific strategy, but just, for example, with the new legislation on pre-K for all saying, in order for us to advocate for higher compensation, the qualifications have to be there too. So in the past, what has happened is that many times it's like you have to get more units, but no more compensation. So our goal is to do both together, and that's our strategy now. And the unions are supporting this piece, especially the goal is to think about the new teachers and how to support the current workforce, because it's very difficult to just say this is a new requirement given that you're a teacher, you're working full-time, and it's really hard to go back to school. So we're saying we understand that, but we're pushing to get scholarships to support teachers who want to advance in their professional career. And also we're aware of how to work with higher ed too, to really think about what is what is the curriculum that you need, that these teachers need. And we're aware that, for example, community colleges have a lot of practice in their programs, and that is very useful for early childhood. When I was a teacher, it's like that's the first thing. It's like very different when you're learning theory, and the minute you go in the classroom, it's So we are aware that programs need to get up to date and really be aware of what's happening in the field.
Another question here?
Hello. I'm curious, or I'd like to hear more about the teacher supports that you're prioritizing, especially as it relates to dual language teachers. We've noticed in the Bay Area that in the last 10 years, limitations to rolling out dual language classrooms has a lot to do with the deficiency in having access to B-clad teachers. So if you could elaborate a little bit about the objectives of the bill that you're supporting. Thank you.
Yeah, so the AB 1012, one of the aspects is to expand programs. So getting funds to do exactly that. So if a school wants to expand or start a dual language program, there'll be funds available for that. And in terms of, there is going to be money to train teachers at the K-12 level, and also early learning. In early learning, there is not a certification yet, but the idea is to have at least the trainings available for strategies. So those two are the main aspects of that. So hopefully, if the bill passes, more, both, if the money is there, so ideally, we'll get more resources for school districts or programs to expand and have the option to include early learning. And also, it's a continuum. So what we are trying to do is, if a school district or a county is interested in expanding, then there will be the resources financially to do it through the state, if it goes through. That's our goal.
Hello, Fred Mayer, consumer advocate back here. I can't stand, but I'm going to sit if that's okay. I have a kid who's a principal in Oakland, and his biggest complaint, he has 25% of his class bilingual. His biggest complaint, he can't retain teachers. And the problem isn't what you talked about. He trains them. They're fantastic teachers, but he can't retain them because there's no affordable housing. So question is, what are you doing about getting teachers affordable housing? Is there any money in the budget, or is there anything? And my second follow-up very quickly is the fact that my young granddaughter just got out of college. She's a teacher. She goes to Oakland, and the first thing she knows, she's on strike over in Oakland. So the strike's over. The question I ask, where is the money? Why isn't it coming down from Sacramento? My kid, the principal says that we get only $10,000 per kid here, per kid, and in New York they get $20,000. I'm saying this whole thing sounds to me, and I'm not a teacher, but I wouldn't be a teacher. But I guess my question is who's got the money, and why isn't it coming down? And he can't retain teachers. I like your spiel, it's wonderful, and I like the best teachers we can get, but they're not going to stick around if there's no housing, if there's nothing else, and the pay is so low, they're not going to, goodbye.
Yeah, I agree with you. And these are the things that, you guys, if you come together and express your voice in Sacramento, I think the more pressure we put, the better. I know there's conversations about housing. I've seen a few articles about, explaining that, basically teachers cannot afford to live where they teach. So the more you express that and coalesce and build coalitions around it, the better. The better chances that this is going to happen. And, I don't have the answers, but I know that what works is to put pressure and to really unite in your communities to have a voice. And what we can do is help build those coalitions and then help make the connection and communicate those needs to the administration. That's, I don't have the answers, but that's what I would do.
Maybe this is on your website, but I'm wondering, is there some research, like a meta-analysis or something that I can use to make a case for dual immersion or for supporting the home language at home? I believe it. I just maybe a quick link or something.
Yes, I'm happy to share. Well, there is a study that the National Academy of Science released a study a few years ago about the benefits of bilingualism. That that's really a good resource that I can share with you, starting there. And then we have many other about programs that work, the benefits, and it's not only what we have seen is that kids that are exposed to two languages, even native speakers, will score better in middle school and high school. Like, will do better even than the kids that speak just one language. So there's evidence and programs across the country, not even only in California, but when they follow kids from kindergarten through middle school, they see that kids who are bilingual are always, they have better analytical skills. They score better in many areas because the brain, is exposed to so much more. So I think, we have evidence of that. So happy to share that after.
Other questions or comments?
You would talk about paying early child education teachers more. Do you know if the daily rate is going to be going up at all for the CSPP programs?
That's our goal. There's a few, the AB 123 bill has that as an increasing rate that has to be connected directly to salaries, and there is a rate reform bill too. It is a AB 125, and there's one in the Senate too. So if everything goes through, hopefully, yes, that's our goal.
There are companion bills in the state legislature around raising rates, not just salaries, but actually raising reimbursement rates. So the pilot that this county and other counties did last year and the year before to allow counties to adjust for cost of living, et cetera, that is now being proposed to be statewide.
Okay, another question here.
Yeah. Hi. Thank you for coming and supporting us. My question is, you're talking about teachers that they have BA, right, or credentials. I'm a director of a preschool, and I hire all kind of teachers with units, teachers that love to teach. And sometimes I hire teachers with credentials where they cost me a lot of money, but sometimes they don't have the units that they're supposed to come with a BA. Sometimes I have teachers with AA degrees, associate degree, and teachers just that they have units. And sometimes, to me, a paper doesn't mean I'm going to give you more money.
Right.
When it comes to when you're seeing in there as a director who really is in the classroom, sometimes a paper doesn't mean much. And to have a dual language in the preschool, you also need to have these teachers that they don't have a BA, but they do because they speak Spanish like me. I barely can speak English, pardon me. But they have that teaching from the heart. And if you're going to have that implemented in the future, we need to start thinking how they can get paid, these teachers, that they don't speak English. Because in my classrooms, I have to have one teacher that speaks English, primary language, but it's so hard to hire someone that is bilingual.
Right.
So I also have to have a teacher that doesn't speak English, but when that little boy that falls down, that his primary language is Spanish, he does have that comfort in his language. So my thing now here is how, because there are so many in Marin County, teachers like me, that we don't have a BA, we have associate degree, and we have so many teachers that they have 40 units in early childhood education. So what are they going to do with these teachers that, like me with dyslexia, I would love to go and get a BA. But, you know, I have my disabilities, and just like that, there are so many Latino teachers like me that would like to, if that is going to happen, that we're so scared, what we're going to feed. I've been teaching for 25 years, but if I don't have a BA, am I going to be excluded?
And that's a great question, and yes. And I think Early Edge is what we're trying to push for, is also how to get the supports for everyone, I mean at every level. So what we have done too is go to conferences where, like, for paraprofessionals, for assistants, where we say these are the things that you can do in the classroom and try to support them at that level. But yeah, you're right. So I think there is another bill called it's AB 324, and it is about providing stipends for. It's a continuation of it's a revision of another bill that is called AB 212. So basically what this bill is doing is providing stipends for teachers across settings. It's not just to get professional development. So that's where I think, and we're advocating for being sensitive to different needs, right? And also, as part of our efforts to get the BA requirement, because it's just like, if we want to advocate for higher compensation, they're going to say, well, but where are the credentials, right? In terms of policy. So we're saying, we understand that. But once we have that, and we're saying we need to work with higher ed, and we need to work with preparation programs to be sensitive to the workforce, where I think, you know, all the bilingual teachers and assistants they need different supports. They need supports in their home language. They need, you know, a career path in Spanish. So I think, you know, our goal is to be, you know, at the same time to have the argument to be able to get, you know, the funds. And once, you know, that policy and as part of that, we're saying, but those, you know, resources have to be there for everyone. So hopefully we'll be able to do both, you know, to really be able to support. And then obviously we'll love to hear more, you know, those ideas and those things that happened in the classroom, because it's like, it's so hard to do both, right? To say, have the policy so we're able to get the funds, but also at the same time say, how can we support you once we get that to get there, right? Because once the money's there and the compensation's there, to say, okay, now let's work together on working with community colleges and seeing if we can get funding for classes in Spanish, or, you know, ways for you to really engage and get the training that you need. So hopefully, you know, we'll get there. But yeah, we'll love to hear more about your experience.
Hi. These school boards do not have the money, as Fred said, and people screaming at us to pay people more. We don't have any money. We cannot raise the cost of admission. This is not a business. The money's in Sacramento, and you need to be supporting the full and fair funding of the California School Boards Association. And if your school board members are not active like San Rafael school board members are, get them active. On Oakland, you got a 12% pay raise. The next day, 257 classified teachers were laid off to pay for that. because there is no money. It has to come from somewhere, and all the research now says the only thing that's closing the achievement gap is more counselors and parent education. Those are classified positions. That's a statement. My question, I'm intimately aware of the amount of money that goes to pre-K, and the question of teacher salaries comes up all the time. Most of these are private. And there's a huge gap between the money we give to private preschools and what the teachers are getting. And what I hear anecdotally, and I'm asking you if this is true, is that the owners like to pay themselves early and often, and will only give the teachers the minimum to keep them there, which is why you have such huge turnover. So is a lot of money disappearing before it gets to the teachers? My question.
And I don't know if I can answer that, but I think that I am with you and I agree, and we've been advocating for within the reimbursement rate reform that there are some guidelines for salaries, so it doesn't depend. Right now, you're right. It's up to the provider to decide how much it goes to salaries. So Early Edge has been advocating to change that, and we sent letters and recommendations to the administration on we need some guidelines to prevent that. So hopefully it will change, but yeah, I agree that it is a problem. Yeah.
I just want to remind people about the Schools and Community First ballot initiative. Just something you might want to check out, because if it passes, it will raise $11 billion more for schools and community. Just a thought.
Hi, my name's Cheryl. I'm with North Marin Community Services. I'm over here. I'm part of a large network of CSPP providers in Marin County, and I just want to emphasize a couple of points that were brought up around the existing system and basically how private childcare centers can be more cost-effective than public. And we have been working hard as a community to raise minimum wages and increase our teachers. We also offer educational stipends and as many benefits as we can, and we fundraise for that too. So I want to make sure in your focus groups that are happening that voice is captured. So our subsidized childcare directors meet once a month, so we'd like to invite you to come and do a focus group there. So
That would be awesome.
In terms of your statewide strategy, are you capturing that voice statewide?
No, and we love to add, the more voices we have, the better, because that will inform, it varies so much, and we've seen here a clear example. So yeah, it would be great to add that, because given that, it's up to the hard work of the providers to determine, how to best use the funds. So any strategies on how to best support people who are providing the care are more than welcome, for sure.
Okay. Thank you. Obviously, we still have a lot of work to do. I want to thank, first of all, Patricia for all of that information, and you will get the PowerPoint. I want to thank Kristen for welcoming us, and all of the commissioners who are an absolute joy to work with, and especially Michelle, because none of our forums and none of our breakfasts would ever happen if it weren't for Michelle. So before we go, you will see on your tables these lovely, what are they, blocks and strings? And we left the label on so you know that they are child safe, because there's no lead, they can eat it, they can do whatever, it's okay. Those centerpieces are for someone at your table to take, and you guys can figure out who that is. The other thing is, outside, you see those bags Michelle is holding up? Those are new parent kits. They've changed a lot. They're not those big boxes anymore. They're nice bags. There are some outside that you can look at, and there is a card. If you need more or you would like more for your agency, there are cards that you can fill out, and they will be sent to you. And I have something with the mic, but I was doing it the whole time I was walking. So thank you very much for coming. Let's watch all these bills. Let's make sure that we pay attention. And Fred, you're right. We have to find the money, and we have to bring it home. Thanks very much.